Now, what I wanted to share with you, Bob, is something that I think is really relevant to this timeline. I found it most noteworthy that you mentioned December, possibly of this year, that would be, potentially the next projected likelihood of it being visible to, pretty much everybody regularly.
Right. Hmm.
And I find that interesting because, well, let me just play this clip. This is a clip. It's only 51 seconds long. This is a prophet of our Heavenly Father, of the Lord. I personally believe, could be wrong, but I personally believe that this particular lady, she had been shown 9/11 prior to it occurring. Some other things she'd seen that Obama was going to get elected prior to that occurring. She has these other folks that are well-known, worldwide well-known prophets with their faces splashed all over the world, on books and things. They rebuke her. They don't like her, and that to me is a really good sign that she's definitely the real deal. The more
She's on to something, right?
yeah, exactly. But listen to this: 51 seconds. She appeared on the Sid Roth show, and listen to what she says. And the reason I bring this up is because if the next projected appearance is 2016, and if your hypothesis / theory is correct, I would escalate it to beyond a theory. I think it's fact, quite frankly, about it. This being visible as early as possibly December of this year to the global population, then the control grid would have to get locked down prior to it being perpetually visible. Otherwise, chaos could ensue, and the elite, if you will, if you want to call them that, the forces of darkness would lose control of the global population, and you would have potentially a French Revolution problem, which of course they don't want. So listen to this. This is Glenda Jackson on the Sid Roth show, sharing with people worldwide what the Lord told her. Listen to this.
And so it has to be a fearful kind of an event, whatever it is. Now, it can be a terrorist event, and it would have to be like multiple terrorist events, like the 9/11 over again, 3 or 4 times, in 2, 3, 4 different cities, or a biological problem of some sort in 2 or 3 or 4 major city states or whatever, to where that would be believed, or moving close into a third world war, to where it looks like militarily it would be accommodated for the powers to be, the covert government. I call it the secret government, if you would, that they would convince the people that we're so close to some political activities that have happened. We're close to World War III, so therefore martial law would be put in there. So these are the 3 or 4 potential reasons that the American people would believe it and accommodate it readily, just like when they did the 9/11 event, when they carried it out, which was, by the way, carried out by evil persons of our own government. It had nothing to do with box cutters and all of that stuff. It was carried out by us, people, bad people in our own government, from the president down at that time. It was carried out by bad guys in our own government. And it was done for a couple of reasons. One, the primary reason being, of course, to bring in the Homeland Security. And the only thing that would allow the American public to clamor for the support of something like the Homeland Security, unconstitutional laws that went with it, and the creation of hundreds of brand new levels of law enforcement, and thousands of new employees under the government in these new governmental policing agencies. The only reason that we would ever buy into that, even on its face, was because people were scared to death of that. That was horrendous kind of an activity, and theoretically done by these crazy terrorists. These guys, by the way, these people couldn't even fly airplanes. And they convinced everybody that they flew these planes into all these buildings, did the Twin Towers, and they went into the Pentagon, and they did this and they did that. That's all baloney. It's unbelievable. And I want to mention that again just briefly in a little while. But the bottom line is that was all done by bad people in our own government. And it was done to accomplish the Homeland Security, which was called the Secret Service, the SS, when Adolf Hitler did it in Germany. He didn't call it, and actually referred to as Homeland Security also. They utilized that terminology when he created the SS, that then, of course, went out and gathered up the Jews and put them in the camps and everything. That was his Homeland Security people. And they actually utilized that same term, which is scary. Whatever. But and what's also scary is that the grandfather of the entire Bush family was partners with another fella here, Harriman, the Harriman family, and Bush, and they supplied financing for the Nazis up until the time that they were literally shut down as a banking entity and put out of business by the FBI for supplying money to the Nazis, and that was George Bush family grandfather. If that don't turn your stomach, people don't even know about that. You look that up, and that'll really upset you. And the idea of putting another Bush in there, of course, that's not going to happen now anyhow. But the idea of having another Bush in there, you might as well dig up Adolf Hitler and put him in. But that's how close they were. Literally, the Bush family's banking system with Averell Harriman back in the 30s and into the 40s, they were still supplying, during the war, money and financial support to Adolf Hitler, period. Anyhow, that's a separate outrageous story. But to get back to the Nibiru thing, I indicated in the DVD. By the way, people who want to get the DVD, it's still available on my website. It's BobFletcherInvestigations.com, BobFletcherInvestigations.com on your computer. You can get a copy. Or if you want to write me, everybody grab up a pencil, and in a couple of minutes I'll give you my mailing address. A lot of folks want to get a list of my investigations that are available, et cetera, including the drug operations that I had testified on relative to government drug operations, and also Sonny Bono's murder. I was literally working with Sonny the year that they killed him. He was murdered on the ski slopes to stop a major congressional investigation that I had supplied a bulk of the information on. Sonny was going to start it in 2 weeks in January, and he was killed 1 week before that was going to begin over the Christmas holidays. And I had been hit, as a matter of fact, 6 months earlier myself, and permanently crippled me. But they killed Sonny completely, put him out of business. That was the end of it. Sonny had called me. His offices had contacted me in Los Angeles, where I was living at the time. They called me in December, and they said, "Bob, we're ready to go with the thing. We've been working on it for 8 months. You get ready to come into Washington." And I said, "I'm absolutely ready to do it," and I was all excited. 10 days after that phone call, they murdered Sonny Bono, and he was killed up on the top of the ski slopes. They told everybody he ran into a tree. Now, let me get back to the Nibiru situation. All right, I had, on the DVD, I said, one thing that's going to start happening is that it's going to affect the sun, and it's going to start having more activity, which has happened. I said it's very specifically going to affect our weather, which is never going to be the same again. Now, I put this in my DVD, which was released 1 year ago. I was predicting for this last year, 2015, relative to what was going to happen. And I said the storms are going to be the biggest that we've had. They're going to be record-breaking. I said that we are going to have an increase in earthquakes, which has happened. I said that the volcanic activity is going to be increasing. And literally, as we speak today, there is a minimum of 40 to 45 volcanoes blowing their tops as we speak. And they don't report much of this stuff. You know, you get little blurps about it every once in a while. There are volcanic activities around the globe like we haven't had in 100 years. And I specifically said that will happen. I also said at that time, unbeknownst to many people, only because they don't study it, they don't keep track of it, I said that the entire planetary system of our solar system had already started to be affected. And I said it will increase over 2015 and, of course, now into 2016, that the planetary structure, all the planets, will be getting affected by Nibiru as it comes back like a bowling ball hitting the bowling pins out in the far reaches of space, or the far reaches of our solar system anyhow. And as that activity takes place, it's going to kick up meteors. We're going to have more meteors and more comets, that type of thing coming in, meteorites. That all has happened also over the this last year so far. It increasing, still happening today as we speak. The volcanic activity is getting crazy. The weather, I don't have to say anything about that because that's something you can just look at, all right? And it has happened. We have broken records on every part of the globe relative to weather, whether it's storms, hurricanes, tornadoes. We have tropical storms starting up now even on like the West Coast in funny places where they're not supposed to because that's not the tropics. What's happening, like off of the coast of Oregon, there is a volcano that's been blowing up for quite a while under the water. It's heating the ocean. It is causing warm air off of Oregon's coast, which is causing storms. And the weather people, you know, they either just don't know what's going on or they're intentionally misleading. But they're funny. They say, well, they got this blob. They refer to it as a blob, which I thought was not very scientific. This heated blob out there for some reason, causing strange windstorms and activity off of the West Coast, like a tropical zone, causes hurricanes, etc. This blob is it's mostly just from this one real good size volcanic activity. It's also what's causing the fish to go in different places and different changes and going different areas like the whales and sharks. And sharks have been attacking people the last year more than ever. It's because their feeding areas have been disrupted by underground volcanic or under the ground, under the ocean volcanic activities. It's screwing up the fish normal habitat, changing it. They're going in different places, and now they're biting people in half. They had this tremendous increase in shark attacks for last year, 2015. All of the weather and all of the storms and all of these extraordinary events are going to continue. They're not going to change. They're not going to get back to a normal, structured currents of wind and heat and freezing and cold. That's not going to come back. We have more ice melts. The glaciers are melting like crazy, quicker on the ice caps of both South and North Pole, quicker than they have in ever. Okay, the percentage of increase of the water being melted under the glaciers and causing the glaciers to fall apart and disappear, actually, in some places up north. And here's how much that it has actually done. That is that in Miami, for the last 2 years, the high tide every day in Miami Beach has become so high now, the water line so high off Miami Beach, it comes in 4 to 6 blocks into the city of Miami Beach. And they have spent millions of dollars putting water pumps in. Every day with the regular high tide, the pumps are in place now, and they have to pump the water out of the regular city highways, or people cannot drive in Miami Beach during high tide. And that's been taking place. It has increased, and it also has increased so bad that they now have budgeted tens of millions of dollars to raise the entire Biscayne Boulevard and the main highways through the Miami Beach. They're going to actually raise the elevation about 10 feet, the entire length of that roadway, so that the water on high tide won't wash over it and go into the businesses.
Wow.
That's a done deal. You can look all this stuff up. Anybody that wants to check on any of this, please, I encourage, look these things up. And the media control is so total, so complete at this point in time. In general, if you're not following it on the computer, looking things up yourself, you do not know what's going on, folks. You do not know what's happening if you don't. Now, that creates a second problem. You can't believe everything and every piece of garbage that's on the internet. You got to be real careful. When you see something that looks like a new news release, check the date on it. You may find out that it's a repeat from something of 2013. So be careful. You can't believe everything, unfortunately, on the internet media. And of course, remember this: the bad guys know how much media is being eaten up by the American public, and they are putting professional full-time, they've got people on a full-time basis putting garbage into the system. So you have to be very careful of that. Don't believe everything you hear. Don't believe me. If I say something, look it up. And if you find that I've made a mistake, drop me a note and let me know about it. I, of course, can't do everything, but the bottom line is I encourage you to look up everything that anybody tells you and take everything with a grain of salt until you're satisfied that it's true. But so what we have here, things that I put in my DVD, which is called Incoming, that's the title of it, things I put into that DVD, I put in literally at this time, 3 years ago was when I researched it. 1 year ago is when I released it, and I said, watch out for these things. They have all taken place. Every single one of them have taken place. Now, people say, this last year, they were talking about when they had the racial problems in a couple of places, and they complained, they said, what's the deal with the local sheriff and the police, the officers and the police officers and sheriff departments? What's with them having military weapons? They have armored cars. They have grenade launchers. They have water cannons. They have personnel carriers built for the military. They have Humvees specially designed, and special guns and rifles with huge clips, like regular military rifles. All right? Here's what happened. In 95 was when I first started getting reports of that. That's how far back it goes. And they've been supplying the police, the military equipment into the police and sheriffs all over the United States. You know, little places, throughout the South and out in the Midwest, little places in Wichita, Kansas, and stuff like that, Spokane, Washington. Going way back to 95 is when it started, and they started putting these weapons in the hands of the sheriffs. Well, here's the deal. They got with the sheriffs and all these people. Of course, those guys love the idea of a Humvee. They're going to have their own Humvee. They're going to have, armored cars and machine guns and this, that, and what have you, grenade launchers and things of that sort. And so obviously those guys all love it. They get turned on to that stuff, and it excites them. They said, look, we can get you this equipment at a real reduced price, and it's going to be stuff that's coming back from the war, et cetera, and we can even help you finance it if you don't have the money for it. Don't worry about it. We'll just put it in your hands and figure out how to get it, pay for it later. They did that, and they have continued to do that from 95 forward up to as of this week. And the reason for that is when they declare martial law, the sheriffs and the police department have agreed, we're going to give you this equipment, but if we call on you for your help in the case of a disastrous martial law configuration, we want you to promise and sign this contract that you will, in fact, support the federal mandates that might come with a martial law mandate. So what they've right away, then the light comes on. Oh, no wonder they did that, right? They didn't just do it it wasn't Santa Claus with equipment for these sheriff's departments and the local police. They have expanded the Homeland Security policing agencies by having these equipment in line, in place at all the local sheriffs and police departments around the country. All right, so that's why, and of course they brought some of it out during the time when they had racial problems, when they had the shootings and what have you and all that stuff with the police departments. They brought them out, and people all of a sudden said, wow, what are they doing? When all of a sudden they showed up, that must be National Guard. And they say, no, it says sheriff on it. It says sheriff on the side of that thing, and that's the reason for it. They became an expanded. Now, also, in the middle of doing my DVD, I found that for the last few years, as the date gets closer on the possibility of Nibiru, as the date gets closer, they have been, even the IRS has been buying under the title, under their IRS requests for funds, etc. They have been buying machine guns and bullets by the millions. And it's no exaggeration. You have the IRS, you got the Treasury Department, you got the Forest Service, the guys that used to go out and tag and count reindeer out in the forest, or white-tailed deer out in the forest, and doing a general maintenance of our forest and parks. The park rangers, they've got millions of bullets, millions of pieces of weapons, full automatic weapons. They've been requested and required to all learn how to use full automatic weapons in all these small, what I call small secondary organizations. The Homeland Security themselves, you have to look it up for yourself because it changes on a regular basis. Homeland Security, under the Homeland Security banner, they have so many new agencies you couldn't count. They're literally a couple of thousand. It's mind-boggling. And then again, under that, you have each one of them has a couple of thousand people. So it's again almost a secondary army that will respond under the banner of Homeland Security or FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. All right, so FEMA, and of course everybody knows they bought tens of thousands of trailers that they've got stashed away that could function as a prison camp facilities and things of that sort. A couple of million coffins that can handle 2 or 3 bodies that were bought by the CDC in Atlanta a couple of years ago. Now there's a couple million. Originally there's 500,000. 500,000 coffins ordered in advance. 1 million coffins now ordered in advance. and put in storage. And I have pictures of that in my DVD. I have pictures and all the numbers on the bullets and the machine guns going into the Forestry Service and other related small agencies. The IRS. What's the IRS doing with full automatic weapons and 2.5 million rounds? You know, that kind of stuff should bother the heck out of people.
Sounds like war.
Well, the bottom line, it's what it is. And here's what it's for. It's for to give the elite, illegitimate governing group. As a matter of fact, President Eisenhower, you know, in 1961, when he discovered what was going on at Area 51 back in the 50s and up to 61 when he left office, he said, beware of the defense industrial complex that's growing and eventually is the most fearful thing in the United States of America relative to taking control, and he called it a cabal. The cabal.
Listen to this. Check this out.
Excuse me?
Check this out. Listen to this. This supports what
Sure.
you're saying. This is News Channel 8, WFLA in Tampa, Florida. I randomly stumbled across this recently while flipping the channels on my local TV. Listen to this.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly what I just said, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Exactly what I just said. Now, I used to live I've lived all over the country, and I lived in South America for a while even, but many, many years ago. But I lived in Miami. I have a son down there that runs one of the biggest recording companies in the entire world, as a matter of fact, in Miami. Has been there managing it for 35 years. Et cetera, et cetera. But I lived right there, so I'm completely. When we talk about like the Miami situation with the flooding, also. But the point is, what the situation is that this secret government, all right, they're the guys that are going down underground. They've already gotten all of our money. They spent billions and billions building these underground hideout survival facilities, you know, and they need 1 week when the time comes when all of a sudden there's that planet coming in and it's visually sighted. See, now the first time that takes place, they will already have martial law in effect. They have to have it in ahead of time so that your friendly, on every street corner of the United States will be a military person of some sort, whether he's a local sheriff assigned or the National Guard assigned underneath the military, assigned to Homeland Security. You know how much security they had today at the big football game? It was mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. I don't have the numbers. I had them earlier. I don't have them in front of me. The amount of personnel besides, dogs, mine detectors, metal detectors, gas detectors, chemical detectors, guys, the dogs doing the detection. But Homeland Security guards with machine guns. You go into New York City, in Times Square, or down into the major Grand Central Station, the railroad station, et cetera, it's machine guns and guys with helmets walking around all the time, with 250 rounds and gas bombs strapped to their belts. You know, that's already here. See, and of course people come up to them and pat them on the back and say, "Boy, we're glad, boy," especially since 9/11 took place. Back in 2001, they took down the Twin Towers.
San Bernardino. San Bernardino. Sure.
Of course, that's small stuff. That's almost a, no disrespect to the people that were killed and injured,
right.
But that's small stuff. You know how many people died at the 9/11 Twin Towers? They took, by the way, they took down 5 buildings. We always say Twin Towers because that's 2. They took down 5 buildings. One of them was not even hit by an airplane and fell down, all right? But that's not what it fell down from. and I'm not going to get into it any more than let me say this. I've got a follow-up DVD report that I've been working on for an entire year and a half now. It should be ready soon. I'm not going to talk about it yet because I get people that want to order it ahead of time, and I don't want to do that because you never know when I'm going to be interrupted, and I don't want people anticipating it until we have it completed.
Right.
But the report's going to be, I'll tell you what, it's more shocking than Nibiru. Absolutely more frightening and more shocking, and absolutely, again, all totally proven, documented. It is the more frightening than the Nibiru coming in, literally. And that might seem hard to imagine, but when you see it, you will understand what I'm referring to now. But and by the way, anybody wants, let me give you my mailing address. If you want to drop me a note directly in any regard at all, or you want a little catalog of my reports, the reports that I've done that are on my website also, but the reports that I've done are only things that I have physically done myself. I'm not doing a CNN news report of other people's stuff. It's strictly and exclusively those things that I've investigated or been a witness in relative to corrupted government. You can write me at Bob Fletcher, Post Office Box 216, Bayview, Idaho. That's Box 216, Bayview, Idaho 83803. That's 83803. Post Office Box 216, Bayview, Idaho. Drop me a note. I'll send you a catalog. If you want the 2-disc on Nibiru, the double disc package, it's $24.95. You can send cash, check, money order. You can get online and order any other way you want to. We pay the postage on it. Postage is free on it, and it's 4 hours double disc. It's a library of information like you've never seen before, particularly on this subject. So let me ask you, do you have a question? I didn't want to miss anything that maybe you particularly wanted to, if I can answer it. If I can't, I'll just tell you I can't answer it. So,
well, the one thing that I was a little bit curious on your take on was that when you look at all, you go back to, like, for example, all the way back to the Iran-Contra affair, and you see the videos that they have out there of, Oliver North, and they got the Senate subcommittee that's doing the investigation, and the one senator starts talking about Rex 84, and Oliver North is like kind of freaking out and looking at the other senator, and they, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like they knew, and if you put that event, and you look at the drug trade, the moving of illegal drugs, Manuel Noriega, all that nonsense, you got Herbert Walker Bush flying for Air America, tons of cocaine in from the Orient, all this kind of creepy, weird stuff going on, and it's all surreptitious. You know what I mean? It's outside of the purview of the office, the GAO office. Where they can't really track the money.
What we call the secret government. Yes.
Is it all linked to PDD 51? The presidential directive for the continuity of government. Or do you see this all ultimately one big master plan to put all this stuff in place because they've known all this time that this was coming?
No. But what it is, that's the no just for the last part. Did they know it was coming? No.
Oh, okay.
It is one world government, new world order, one world government. George Bush used it many times himself, that terminology, as close as he could. He actually said, we're moving into a new world order, a one world government. He said that over and over again, all right, during his time talking George Bush 1. And then his son came along and stumbled around and followed the best he could. Now you have to realize George Bush was, in fact, when he was vice president for Ronald Reagan, He was, for the most part, he and Bill Casey and some of his other people there, those guys were actually running the presidency for Reagan. They just sort of did what they wanted and told him what to do and what to say. He was strictly a puppet, and that's all there was to it. A very close friend of mine had been with the CIA for ages, actually worked with Bill Casey and wrote the speeches for Reagan and Casey. Anyhow, it is the New World Order, one world government, which goes back many years, goes back to George Bush's grandfather, who was doing the Nazi financing that I mentioned earlier, with Averell Harriman and Bush together. That goes to the 30s. But here's a frightening thing. I want everybody has to get a copy of this book I'm about to tell you about. I used to handle them many years back in '95. We handled them with the Patriot Militia Movement. We had those available. They're on a reprint, all right, and it's called The Report from Iron Mountain. This was put together originally. It was delivered, finished. This report was completed in, period of time. It was delivered to Lyndon Johnson after him and some of his friends eliminated John F. Kennedy after they killed Kennedy and replaced him with Lyndon Johnson as vice president. The report was finished. It had been started by John F. Kennedy, requested to put together a report. And the report, which is called The Report from Iron Mountain, that is the book title, and there is available. It's a $9.95 kind of a thing or something like that. It is still available. You have to go online to find out where to get it. I'm not involved with it. I didn't print it, didn't have anything to do with it. It was finished and printed in 1967. And the idea was they had, for something like 2 years or 3 years, they had run a committee, a commission that was put together by, like I said, originally Kennedy. Kennedy was killed, then they delivered it to Johnson. Johnson classified the entire report, which originally was 7,000 pages. And Johnson classified it pretty much forever, put one of those 100-year classifications on the thing, so you're not supposed to get the entire report. You couldn't get it. But one of the people that was involved with the committee on this study to create this study, the report from Iron Mountain, was done on, it was put together on the concept of what has to take place in the United States financially, militarily, psychologically, sociologically, and politically to put us under a one-world government headed by the United Nations, to put us into a la-la land, a happy land, with a parliamentary structure overseeing world government on all activities of humanity on the entire globe. And what is required, what do we have to do in the United States to convince the American people that this is a way of life that we need to pursue? It's the New World Order, one world government. And so the plans for this thing are in black and white, printed in 1967 and delivered to the presidency. And this book itself, not the report, 7,000 pages, but this 110-page book is a book written by one of the people that was directly involved with the 2 or 3 years of the meeting of this committee. The committee used to meet like every 30 days or whatever it was in the top secret underground facility called Iron Mountain. That's why the title is The Report from Iron Mountain. That's where they met. And they put this together. Now, here's where I'm getting to this it's kind of a long, maybe unnecessary way to do this, but I wanted people to understand what I'm talking about. You have to get this book. if you care about your country at all, you have to get this. It's mind-boggling. Basically, what this does, it is a blueprint, and it says it will take 30 years. So it would have put them. They were setting a target for 97, because this was 67 when it was published. And they said, one thing we have to do is we have to control the weather, which our people are now working on. That was in the 60s, working to control the weather, and to have full control of the weather by the United States government or by government agency. Okay, I testified before the United States Senate Intelligence Committee and on weather control back in 1995. I sat before the Senate and did that testimony. That's also available. Anybody wants to snoop around, you can find it someplace. It's on YouTube, I think, a couple hundred times. But anyhow, it was a 1995 presentation before the Senate. They have complete weather control. That's been done for years. It's very sophisticated now because it's electronic. It's totally an electronic mechanism by which they can control. They can create tornadoes, create hurricanes, move hurricanes, dissipate them, move them, do whatever they want to. So does the Chinese and the Russians. Both of them, all three of us have complete weather control at this time.
40 seconds.
Now, sure.
We're down to 40 seconds.
Oh, okay, good. Anyhow, get that. What it does, it literally also says, when we want to scare the public, what we suggest you use is an artificial attack from unknown terrorists not connected to a country, and that would be the best way to scare the people into going along with world government, and that's what they did in the 9/11. And in my new thing that I'm working on right now, I will prove completely how that was done, who did it, how they managed to carry that out. And it was totally fraudulent, and it was done by bad people of the United States of America. And they killed 4,000 people that day, and another 30,000 have died from breathing the dust from those buildings.
Wow. Wow. And we are now on borrowed time, recorded time. The show is no longer live. That's okay. Thank you so much. I wanted to hear that closing argument, Bob. This is exciting. Folks, Bob Fletcher Investigations. Just open up Google, type in Bob Fletcher Investigations, and you will find his website. There's a ton of stuff that you brought forward this time that we didn't touch upon on the prior show, and a lot of it I wasn't even aware of. This is some amazing research that you brought forward, and very exciting. I'm actually quite excited about the release of your next DVD series. Praise God for your work. Thank you so much, Bob. It looks like we're going to see a lot of these things go down this year. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, sir. You take care of yourself.